Hello everybody, I'm Chris Dummigan, Technical Lead for Biologicals, and today I want to talk to you about how to get the most out of your YieldOn application. So YieldOn is our reproductive biostimulant for cereals and corn, and what's different about it as a biostimulant is it needs to be applied at a very particular time in the crop's life cycle. We define it as a reproductive biostimulant, and this is because it needs to be applied at a specific time of grain or seed development in order to have value. And we're going to talk about what YieldOn actually does in a crop. Let's talk about what YieldOn is. And in order to talk about what YieldOn is, we first need to define how it fits into this framework of biologicals. So simply put, a biological is a crop input that is derived from a living source. And we can have living biologicals, things like beneficial bacteria, fungi, endophytes, beneficial insects, but we can also have non-living biologicals. And the most common of these are plant-derived biochemicals. You can also have biological pheromones. These two categories are different and they have different application and handling requirements. And so it's important to know what you're working with. And any of these, we like to categorize them as three different jobs. Being a biostimulant, something that is improving crop vigor. Biocontrol, something that is controlling a disease or pest. And then finally, nutrient use efficiency, something that is assisting a crop in its ability to uptake nutrients or even providing nutrients to its host crop. And we classify YieldOn as a plant-derived biochemical, and it is a biostimulant. So what's in YieldOn? YieldOn is extracts from 3 different plant species developed from Syngenta Biologicals biostimulant development pipeline. And 65% of the dry weight of YieldOn is actually from plant extract. So what does YieldOn do? Like I said, YieldOn has to be applied at a very particular time in its host crop. And we define it as a reproductive biostimulant. Because what YieldOn does is it improves the process to move sugars from leaf tissue into the grain or seed during that grain development period. And this is through a process called upregulated phloem loading. So let's talk about the problem that YieldOn's solving. And I think this is really well illustrated if we think about challenges to a spring wheat crop in Western Canada. Now, wheat, it is a cool climate crop, and it is particularly sensitive to high temperatures during flowering and grain development. And if you look at the optimal conditions for grain development in spring wheat, it's actually 21 Celsius during flowering. And if you gave a spring wheat crop all the water that it could use, it could actually drink 0.19 inches of water a day. In Western Canada, there's not many days with these conditions. And so it presents challenges to your spring wheat crop. And really, this higher temperature and drought can lead to reduced grain set, reduced grain fill and smaller kernels, and then ultimately lower yield. So if we look at the crop management cycle in cereals, really we're looking at this reproductive timing. Head emergence is when we want to be applying a YieldOn application, and that's to improve the flow of nutrients, really starches, from the leaf tissue to promote optimal grain development when the conditions outside may not be ideal for your cereal crop. YieldOn, what's great about it is it's easily mixed with your planned head timing fungicide. 2 of the products that I recommend my growers to use are Miravis Ace and Miravis Era. Now in corn, we want to be applying YieldOn between V10 and R2, really to promote that kernel development in corn. So we've been looking at YieldOn for 4 years now, and we've got a lot of trials really across Canada looking at where it's performing best. If you look at these, we have quite a positive response. We're seeing an average of plus 5.41% over a fungicide alone. And we're seeing a positive above 0 response in 81% of trials. And what's really cool about if we get a data set like this across Canada, we can really look at where is YieldOn performing the best and where do we maybe not see the benefit of a YieldOn application into your fungicide. So if we look at our whole Canadian data set of YieldOn and look at where are we seeing the most value for a YieldOn addition into a fungicide application, 2 of the things that are most important to get a high responding field are first, high amounts of growing degree days in the 2 weeks before an application. And what this is telling me is you're looking for these fields that have a lot of potential, a lot of vegetative biomass, and a lot of sugars that you can then move into those grain heads. And the second thing is looking at the conditions in those 2 weeks after an application. And what's really cool is the top 25% of YieldOn trials, they had hotter conditions following a YieldOn application. And so YieldOn is really helping those crops have proper grain development when the environment may not be ideal for your cereal crops. So if you have some fields that you think have some potential and you're looking to really get the most out of those fields, you should consider adding a YieldOn application into that fungicide application to really try and maximize the yield in those fields.